All right.
So I was saying before that my wife didn't have a happy ending, and my wife always likes a happy ending, and I guess there's not any worth writing, just a tragedy. So what happened is we came back here, and we were both being poisoned here, so we decided to go back to California and stop in Oregon and visit my daughter, which we did. And we had to go back and retrieve our stolen property. Everything was stolen here in this house. And so I'm laughing because the chipmunk is going to attack my photographer. So, so we did that, and she got to see the most amazing sights. I had never seen Niagara Falls, neither had she. We went to Mount Shasta. We saw the most beautiful sights. There was a place in Oregon that reminded her of Switzerland, which she had gone to school in Switzerland. So, so I'm going to go back. So I thought maybe that was the ending for the last Christmas cabin, her side. And because like I said, she runs parallel in the book to Mateo, extreme opposites. And yet seeking the same thing, freedom and a happy ending to their life, which is disrupted at the time. And so, but then she came here, and I had rebuilt the porch, and then I rebuilt it some more. And then she came out on this porch, and she sat here on this porch, and I shouldn't give you anyway, but I think she's going to have to write it because I'm running out of time. And even today, she was sitting knitting with my daughter on the porch, looking at all the animals and the birds, and they're trying to figure out what birds are what. I think that if we could get funding from National Geographic, they would be well off to fund my wife and my daughter to do a blog on nature here. We've had all kinds of animals come through here, and it just would be pretty fun.
Okay.
So we're going to make this short. I made this board this August, and there's something that came about with the last Christmas cabin. It's called the Monument to Freedom. And this is the Monument to Freedom. I want to build this on this property. And this is the last Christmas cabin. This is what the image would look like once it was done. That's the tail, and then my wife is in here. Mount Monadnock is in here because this is done under Mount Monadnock. The idea of the last, the Monument to Freedom, is that I did a sculpture when I was in high school of a running man. It's a little bronze man, and he's just running. And then I did a picture of him running kind of into space, and that's what I want to go on the monument. And people would say, well, you know, the black people came there and they were saved. This was a safe house. Mark Twain came here. Frederick Douglass was standing in one of the rooms here, probably talking. And so why do you just have a running man? The idea is you're persecuted or you want to change your life. So you decide you're going to go somewhere, and basically it starts with a dream of the possibility that you can go somewhere. Now in America you could do this. And I ran for president in 2016. I ran against Trump. I knew I'd win because they had such low numbers. It was a no-brainer. I got about 50 people to maybe vote for me. I canvassed Keene. And then I went to Peterborough and I gave a speech in the city hall, which has since been redone, and nobody showed up. I put posters up and stuff, and I went to Cornish, and I filmed myself standing at the Lincoln statue, which had just been put up about a month before. And it was done also by St. Gaudens, and now they're redoing in Boston the St. Gaudens medallion of the 54th Battalion, which was the black troop that came from Massachusetts. They sent 600 men from that troop. 40% of them returned. They went up against a fort and were basically slaughtered. Nobody really cared. And in that troop, they lived, but were two of Frederick Douglass's sons. Now, this was from the origins of William Lloyd Garrison. Boston is the origin of the abolitionist movement. And so, why would I want to put the monument here? First of all, this was a safe house, and several, if many, slaves came here. Across the farm was where Moses Cheney was, and he was the director of the Underground Railroad for here. This is all in the Historical Society. But this is why I had the dream in this house of Follow the Star. And what I would find out is that when I ran for president in 2016, this is where it matters here. First of all, I went up to Cornish, and like I said, I took pictures for my posters. When I gave my speech, which nobody showed up for, it was in the paper in 2016, it was September 20th, which was just 6 days ago or whatever. When I gave my speech, I wrote my speech as if I was Abraham Lincoln on his second term. And basically, he's in the middle of the Civil War. I think he was re-elected in 1864. And I purposely talked about the slave issue. This was before the book of Follow the Star, because that was 2017. And why I chose to be Lincoln and talk about black people, I don't know. Because I basically haven't been following much of this, and none of this appeared. And so what was cool is the other day, I was looking for the posters I had done, and I had found it the other day in the date of September 20th. And basically, I have a video done of it, but I couldn't find it. I packed it away. And I found the box that had not only my speech, my party was the Green Tree Party, and I have a big tree in my yard, and that's what it represented. But I wrote the whole speech as if Lincoln was giving it on his second inaugural, trying to get reelected. I wrote the coolest speech ever. I didn't know this, but I really nailed it. And someday maybe it'll be published, but I was writing like Thomas Jefferson or Ben Franklin or one of those people. In fact, I mentioned them in my speech. I couldn't believe what I created. I created a man talking about what the rights were of men, and how that the country was split in half, and how all that mattered to him was union. And this is what I've been working on for a long time. So I need money. I need money to finish the Christmas cabin, because my wife and I and daughter are dying here at the house. We need everything fixed, and I need 6 or 10 people to come over and build the rest of the cabin. I need people to work on the Monument to Freedom. So I was going to show you one other thing real quick. Watch your step. This is the inside of the Christmas cabin. My wife and I and my daughter have all slept here now. And even though the outside isn't finished, I chipped all the logs and stuff that you see, and they're actually rafters from a barn I took down. This is kind of the representation corner of the last Christmas cabin. And this is a book of Uncle Tom's Cabin, an actual book by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Harriet Beecher Stowe is all through my journey. She moved in next door to Mark Twain in Connecticut. And so I built this little log cabin here. You can't see it because I put it inside for protection, but I made a clay cabin inside there. And the shutters fell on it. Didn't squash it. Knocked the little man out of it. But this cabin, I actually bought it in Peterborough. And basically, it had just come in 2 weeks before to this store. This store is the same place where I got a slave stick, which was a stick used to mark the North Star, which lines up perfectly with this house. This thing in the back I bought at Job Lots, and that's the one. And so this is Uncle Tom's Cabin. A little later on version, that's when she explains it. This is Uncle Tom's Cabin. And this is on the other video. And then this is like Edward McDowell's cabin, and that's on the other video as well. Everything here has to do, I built this little log cabin out of logs that I found in the recycle place, or Lincoln Logs. This was the deluxe edition. And then we had this mechanics magazine that I bought at the same place. And this is 1937. Look what these guys are doing. They're filming a log cabin. Now, what was interesting about this book is I've been working on advanced mathematics, and when I was a boy I was told a cure for cancer and a cure for the energy problem. In this magazine, it talks about the energy thing way back in 1937. So all of this was lined up for this purpose. The whole inside of this came from the barn on Elm Street. These panels came from the house that was there, and they're going to go in. The doors all came from the house that was there. And so, I hate to say this, but the spirit world was prepared. Right now, we need a lot of help. We need help to get this cabin up. The flooring also came from the cabin that was there. I would like, and the guy that's filming this kind of laughed when I said this, I would like 6 black men, or black men and women, to come and lift the ridge beam up and put the rafters in for me, because I can't do it anymore. I'm pretty bent up, and I don't think it'll ever happen.
Why black?
Because this whole story is about black men, and I don't mean to sound prejudiced. Most people think I am. Perhaps I am. But I've noticed that black men do not react to any of the abolition things, and they really don't care about the sites of where abolitionists saved their people, because they think that everybody owes them everything. And let me finish. And he's shaking his head. Let me finish. Maybe rightfully so, but there becomes a point where the people that lived in this house and the people that were, like, say, in New York or something, they had their houses burned because they were trying to help black people free them from slavery. And it was against the law to harbor slaves. So even the people in this house on this farm that were hiding slaves and transporting them, they were taking big chances. And somehow, I don't know, it's just gotten out of sync, you know? And that's why, because of the Monument to Freedom and the fact that at least 5 or 10 black people were saved here, I would like some black people to come help me build a cabin. It's just a sign that they do care. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but nobody so far cares. And maybe some white people will fund this, but it doesn't mean the same. I want people to come here and help me build this. This is not my responsibility. This is not my job. It may have been my book, but it cost me everything I own and my health and everything else. I've been on this journey since I was born. I found out the things I did in California and Monterey were all connected to abolition. Some of the things where I went and did my picture shoots, they had a black slave connected to it. So maybe this was because when I was a kid, my dad bought a black junk man's yard, and there was stuff all over the place, and it was 7 acres of stuff the guy had collected from doing trash hauling. And then our other neighbor on the other side in Marino was a black lady who was a house cleaner, and she had tons of stuff that she'd put in a building. Well, my parents gave her our banjo, and I'm like, I never did understand that. I would have liked to have had our banjo. Not that I would have learned how to play it, but I know it came from San Juan Bautista. And so I guess when my father bought the property, he spent 2 days building bonfires and throwing all the stuff in it. And I never did get over that. That instilled in me this thing of collecting things and saving history. And I don't know, I'm passionate about saving things and buildings. This whole project is built out of some buildings that came down in Peterborough. The other thing is, all of this movement is centered in Peterborough. Everything is centered in Peterborough. That's why the monument needs to be here. It's that there's a possibility that the first man brought from Africa as a slave came here to Peterborough, this spot, this house, and that was 2,000 years ago. So that's very cool. And I don't know, if you actually care that we could build something that everybody could shoot for, the idea of the Monument of Freedom is that everybody can run, everybody can dream of freedom, and everybody can maintain freedom. Even if it's running away from Verizon, we can declare our freedom and keep going. But we have to support this monument. And it has to be a beacon of light for everybody in the world that can say, that monument exists there, where a lot of this abolition thing began. And, you know, I have all the stuff to back it up, and now that I found out about the Lincoln stuff, and I found out about the California stuff, I mean, I did a lot of my picture shoot in a place called Downeyville, and it turns out, through my book reading, that the man who created Downeyville, which is where I did my picture shoots, like I said, in California, I didn't know any of this had anything to do with any of it. He went out there with an ex-slave, or an actual slave, and together they created the town of Downeyville. I'm like, what the heck? And then I'm from Monterey, and one of the black slaves lands in Monterey and then takes off for the gold fields. And there was one guy named Gibbs, or something like that. I read this in the Prospector's book, because I was always into gold mining, and that's what I was going to do. I was always going to be a history teacher. I never was. And he was actually friends with Frederick Douglass. He was working with Frederick Douglass. He was losing business because he was a carpenter like me. He takes off for California, he gets in the gold rush. He finds out that California is coming in as a free state, but won't accept free blacks. That was 1850. And so he takes off. He goes to the Klondike, he makes a lot of money, he comes back here, he goes to college, he gets an education. Then he becomes famous. He's an ambassador or something for the U.S. So, again, all this information now is poured in. I can supply information for the next 10 years of what actually happened instead of what we've whitewashed, if you'll excuse the term. And so, if you feel like helping me, my wife left an email address which I don't know, and it's Z-Road something or other, and send money, send help, you know, save us. You know, we're facing a lot of major problems that we shouldn't be, and it's so simple, you know. This doesn't have to end in a tragedy. Uncle Tom doesn't have to die. And that's me. I'm the guy that wrote this story, and I'm the guy that they're losing. So, is that the end?